9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, it's Amanda with DevExpress, and welcome back to our live session. I am here with Areg. Hi Areg, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. So we're gonna take over where we kind of left off last time. So if anyone
Perfect.
recalls, and I think we have a recording of this, so you could step through it if you'd like. What we went through was signing a PDF document and applying changes to a PDF using what we call our Office File API. And we did it in a non-Windows environment, and we kind of stepped through it to kind of get the bare bones essentials of what you have to do if you go through that process. Now, the point of this is it's a non-visual library, meaning whatever type you have, whatever type of app you have, you can use the Office File API there. The only requirement is that it's a .NET framework or a .NET Core environment. But the idea is if you go to our demos, you could kind of see the Office File API in action if it's kind of unclear based on the description. But when it's integrated within an ASP.NET Core application, it looks like this. So you could basically take these steps in any type of application that meets that requirement of .NET Core or .NET Framework. So if you're building a WinForms client app and you want to display a view like this where you're filling in a PDF with some arbitrary values like some other last name, for example, and you want to generate the PDF and have it. You can generate the PDF again, and lo and behold, here we have the field that I just filled in here, updated. This is not super exciting when it's tried and true and kind of repeats of old frameworks, but we have components in Blazor as well, and that's what we're going to go over today. We're going to go over kind of the typical sort of application you might want to build in Blazor to actually handle the process of signing documents. And like I said, that's something you could do completely inside of like a command line sort of interface where you pass in a command to sign the document. But typically you want to give your users a little bit more in the ways of functionality. You want to allow them to maybe drag and drop a file and upload it, and from there go ahead and decide what they want to go ahead and do. Do they want to go ahead and sign the document or not? So for starters, kind of a lot of this, pretty much everything when it comes to using the .NET CLI leans really heavily on our NuGet feeds. And so this website, NuGet.devexpress.com, is your friend. So I turn to this very often. So for example, if you go to this handy website, you could, one of the nice features is search for packages. So if I click on search for packages, I can actually find the main package we're going to be using today, which is devexpress.blazor. And if you click on it, it gives you a really good summary of how to go ahead and use it. So if you go to .NET CLI, it describes how to actually integrate this. And again, like last time, my NuGet feed is available raw on the screen recording, but it's okay. I'm going to change it again a second time after this, and so you, unfortunately, you can't rely on this, and I hope no one is looking to pirate based on this. But my point being is that this command will allow you to add the Blazor templates. And you can go ahead and start adding packages as well. I should also mention one last thing about NuGet so that kind of you can get up and running is that actually there are a few packages we have on the free NuGet.org, and these are kind of required for building out the project templates. So if I head right into one, so if I go to DevExpress, and it should be under something like, I think the naming is kind of verbose. So finding it a second time is, yeah, this is what it is. So DevExpress project template. So to install this, you have to actually .NET new -I. So you have to install it into the new command. I know that it's not listed here exactly how to do it, but you do need to install these templates. Assuming that you have these installed, actually the rest is pretty straightforward, and we could head right into kind of what your environment will look like. So if you've actually run the installer in Windows, this is kind of taken care of for you, so you don't have to really worry or think about it a second time. But for those of you who are not using Windows, if you look at the full list of kind of what DevExpress has installed into your new project templates, they all have the prefix of DX. So if I look for this, I have a bunch of different DX options. I could use reporting in Blazor. We will eventually, I think, get to that. But today what we're going to focus on is this particular template, DevExpress Blazor Server App. And the reason for that is that it just makes organizing our code that much easier, because we're going to be using the Office File API, like I said, in a Blazor application, and we want to do something meaningful with files and signing them. So we probably want to upload them. So we're going to use our upload control, and that's going to require us writing a controller and running it. So it's kind of like a little callback to ASP.NET Core, but it's going to fully live inside a Blazor application. So just so we kind of get a sneak preview of kind of how the upload control looks like, if I go to demos.devexpress.com, again, another really handy website, I could go to Blazor UI and go into our main demos, and I believe we call them the file management category of what we offer for Blazor. So if I go to file management here, and we have something called the upload control, and this is actually the workhorse of kind of what we're going to be using today. So there's two different ways of going about using it. You can either click select file, and you get a little dialog that shows up on your screen, and you can pick your file, or you can actually drag and drop a file. I'm not sure how our demo works actually, so let's take our sample, our large PDF, and try to drag and drop it directly into the demo. And oh, it actually does work. Great. So this is kind of how the upload control canonically should work, and our app should do the exact same steps that
Loving
this one
that
has.
confidence, Areg.
Yeah.
The demo work.
Yeah. But we can, there's a few different options as well. You can kind of set here. We have, I think, quite a few of them set by default when we, run into this demo or run into my demo. So let's go back into the bare bones. There's not much in this folder except kind of the sample file that I'm hoping to sign, and the signature that I have that is my signature. I'm going to be applying to PDFs as you'd expect. And so it lives in this this folder called docs, and basically that file, if I go ahead and open it, this folder, actually, if I go ahead and open it, there we go. There is this PFX file. It's kind of like a mystery of how it happened, but actually if you watch the other screencast again, we step through kind of how to generate this in a console environment. And so we relied on the OpenSSL command for this. And so you need an environment where OpenSSL exists to actually get this PFX file, but we generated it from scratch, and we had to input little details, a little survey that pops up and says, what's your location, your name, your organization. We filled all that stuff already. So this PFX file, I'm not sure how macOS displays the certificate, but yeah, nothing too fancy there. And then again, like I said, the PNG, which is actually the thing that's going to show up on the PDF to just give the visual indication, hey, this is signed. And we have a couple of sample documents so that we can kind of quickly head into actually signing. So let's go ahead and, again, like I said, let's create a new template, DX Blazor server, I believe was what the template was called. I'm going to call this, like, let's say, DevEx Blazor, my project name. I actually, by default, also in my little environment that I have, I should also mention that I actually don't like calling out to remote locations or to online places to actually do my development work. So I actually have things set up kind of locally. So if I go to my list of sources, you'll notice I have something called local DX, which you don't have, but I do. And local DX basically, just for clarification, I just went ahead and I put all my NuGet packages that I'm going to rely on today into this folder called packages. And packages has a bunch of NuPKG files that I actually just pulled from our installer, and I just put them in this folder so I don't have to ever go online to restore a project. I don't ever have to hit a NuGet server anywhere else. And these are using the 23.2 EAP. So if you're a universal subscriber, you can use the same version I'm using, but I like living on the bleeding edge. So I'm using the pre-release packages for our NuGet, and that's kind of why
Wow.
I'm doing this. But
Risky business.
yeah, risky indeed. But I should also mention that since I'm going to be using these templates to generate my project, you'll notice that it's not 23.2, it's actually 23.1 here that's mentioned. So you see 23.1, meaning that this is on the stable version, meaning that we're going to have to make a small correction after we generate the project. And specifically, I'm going to also need a NuGet feed link to. So let's go ahead and go back to the NuGet.devexpress.com website, which is, again, a very great place that you have to kind of reference more than a couple times when you're building applications on the CLI. But the place, besides having a package search, we also have a place where you can actually look up your feed URL. And so this is actually something that is available to you from the download manager as well. I'm going to copy it here. And the point is that I'm going to create a new template, a new project based on a template. So Blazor server, I believe, is the name of the template. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. I'm going to call today's application Blazor, let's say, or DevExpress. And I'm going to pass in manually the NuGet feed I need, because otherwise, like I said, my NuGet feeds are the two above. It's the free NuGet.org that everyone has, and it's that special one, LocalDX, that I enabled so that I don't ever have to remotely pull in NuGet packages and depend on a NuGet server existing on the internet. Okay, so this should go ahead and create successfully my DevExpress Blazor server app. And now I have something called DevExpress, and I probably want to head right into it. And you get basically all the sort of goodies and the starters that you kind of expect right out the box. So I can, before I do anything else, I could just prove that it actually does run and it's a Blazor server app. So if I go .NET Run, it's building for the very first time, and it's asking me for my keychain on my computer. I'm going to allow always, because if I don't allow always, it's going to constantly nag me. And it builds and runs fine. I actually prefer using .NET Watch because it's a slightly nicer process. You just run it, the command line, and it opens up the browser for you. So it should just spin up a new browser session, and localhost 5001, and let's ensure, yeah, this is actually what it spun up. It kind of did in the background, but if I wanted to, I could even restart that so kind of it's more clear kind of what happened. So if I go .NET Watch, and then I have my, I believe, default browser, I'll go ahead and just point to it. Yeah. Again, it kind of popped up all of a sudden. But the point is that this is actually an application that depends on things like our DevExpress grid, and the only problem with this particular application is that it's using a set of packages that kind of is not the bleeding edge. So if I go to .NET list packages or list package, there's so many things that the .NET command does, so the commands and their order is important. So I said .NET list package, and now it's telling me, lo and behold, I am using the DevExpress.blazor package that I did talk about earlier. The only problem is that it's using version 23.1, which is not what I really want to be using. So firstly, I think for starters, I really don't want to use the built-in NuGet source that I kind of like pushed in. So I'm going to go and list my sources, and it should now give me 3 different NuGet sources. And the third one, or it looks like the first one, DevExpress, is actually not what I want to point to, because like I said, I don't really like pulling in things online when I don't have to. I like working offline on a computer if I can get away with it. And for NuGet.org, obviously you have to be online, but for other things, for day-to-day where I'm not actually pulling in like open source free stuff from NuGet.org, I prefer not to have to necessarily have a persistent internet connection if I want to develop on, like, let's say a Playwright or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and disable and then remove that source. So I'm going to have I'm gonna have to, I believe, it's the commands. It's not. So .NET NuGet disable source, and I'm going to give it by name, the very first source, so that I don't really have to rely on it anymore. And it says disabled successfully, and just to sanity check, make sure that it's disabled, and it is in fact disabled. And beyond that, I also like just getting rid of it so it's out of sight and out of mind. So I'm going to remove that source as well. So now we're going to go back down to 2 NuGet sources. So and that's happened, and now if I list my sources, I should again be back down to 2, which is great. But I also got to go ahead and upgrade my packages. And again, the packages right now, there's only one right now, but in this project we have 23.1, which again I don't really want to be using. I want to use the cutting edge that I already have on my machine, which is 23.2. It's the EAP. And again, just in case people are wondering, right now it's the middle of November. We are planning on one more beta release beyond what we have right now for 23.2. So one release beyond the EAP, and then we're going to have the GA in December for 23.2. So after .NET Conf, you'll basically, give or take a week or two, you'll have access to the stable version of 23.2. So let's go ahead and remove that package that I was talking about that is not really on the right version. So we don't really want to use the old or the stable. We want to use the cutting edge. So I'm going to add a package for, it's the same name. It's DevExpress.Blazor, except it's going to have a little bit of a trick to it, which is I'm going to pull in pre-release packages. And if you have been using Blazor from the very beginning, and you've been keeping up to date with things, you're used to using pre-release packages by now. Most people nowadays don't really have to pass in this flag, but if you want to jump forward one version and we have an EAP available or something like that, you'll do this. So I'm going to go ahead and add DevExpress Blazor with the right version, and it's going to be pulling in what I'm expecting, and just again, to sanity check that my packages are on the right version. Now I'm no longer on 23.1. I'm on 23.2, and it's an alpha version, which is super scary. It's not even a beta yet, but it's mostly fine for everything I've tested it. It's not going to explode in our faces. And if I just again sanity check that the application does run, and close this tab, I'm going to do a .NET Watch now, and it's going to go ahead and hopefully automatically open a tab. The new tab is going to be here, the application, and it's running fine. And we have the DevExpress grid. This is using the EAP version, and there are no special warnings or anything like that, I believe. So if I go to my developer console, I don't get any special standard out warnings. It was just basically typical stuff. So from here, we actually do want to start the process of heading into the application itself and coding things. So let's go ahead and look at, I think I've opened this up, I opened the base folder as well. But this is the main folder I want to look at. And if I don't want to look at my makefile configuration, I want to look at kind of the files I have. And since I said we're going to be doing an upload control, it kind of makes sense for the very first thing I want to do, which is my web root. I want to actually have a place to store our files. So if I go into, and let me make this a little bit bigger, if I take a look, you'll see that since my web root is here, it's this www root, I probably want to add a new folder called uploads here, and this is where we're going to basically store the files on the server itself. So when we upload files, they'll get stored in this folder, and we'll deal with kind of managing that process as well. Now, the thing is that we also have to make a few additions here to the base configuration that we're looking at. So let me get rid of the side tab so we can kind of look at this. I probably want to, I already have this using for my this namespace for devexblazor.data, which is what the demo data uses that weather forecast data. I also, like I said, I'm expecting that we're going to be using controllers. We have to, because this is a upload control. It's not totally done client side. So we're going to have to enable the same sort of services that ASP.NET Core has. So basically, it's the ability to have controllers, and beyond that, also if you ever enable controllers, and you're kind of ASP.NET Core already handles this for you. But if you're adding them from scratch and they didn't already exist, besides adding the controllers themselves here on line 13, that's what we're doing. We actually need to make sure that we do map them. Otherwise, we're not going to be calling them, which is bad, because if you have controllers, I'm sure that you actually do want to use them. So we want ASP.NET Core middleware to be kind of functional fully, and to not just have them in existence in terms of types that we need for controller base and controller, but we want also it to be callable at various points as well. And I think that kind of the other side of this is that, and I'm going to go ahead and follow kind of what the process was here for the sample that kind of Microsoft was also kind enough to kind of give us, which is the weather forecast data. Obviously, we're not going to be building a weather forecast app with random data in our example here. What we're going to go in and do is we're going to have some idea of kind of how is the application going to be aware of the files that we're going to be putting in this folder, in the uploads folder. So they're going to get URLs which are accessible that you can find. So given a file name, we want to basically pull in these different URLs for these files, so that we can actually reference them in the upload control and make them available for things like download. So I will, at the end of the day, need some sort of service that handles that. It doesn't exist yet, but I'm gonna call it file storage service, and I'm gonna have it actually exist kind of where the weather forecast service exists. So it's gonna be called creatively file storage service.cs. So here we go, and let me go and pull in here the file storage service, and again, we want to actually have it be accessible. So I believe, what was our app called? DevExpress, and we're gonna call it DevExpress.data, and this file storage service is kind of be the glue piece that's gonna connect that uploads folder I added here to kind of the wider app. So we're gonna call this the file storage service, and inside of this we're gonna have something that's gonna do most of the heavy lifting, which is just gonna be a field that's gonna be mapping. I have to, in this case, sensitive. I'm going to be mapping GUIDs with strings, and the strings are going to be URLs. Basically, the URLs are going to be the things that point to where the files actually live in the uploads directory, and it's in our www root. So it's a mouthful, but here we are. So we've gone ahead and added that particular field that is going to be doing most of the heavy lifting, and we need some way of kind of interacting with this. So we probably want to be able to add additional files. So because we don't have any files right now, we're going to be uploading them. So we're going to have an add method. We're also going to have some way of retrieving the files. So it's going to be a nullable string. We're going to go ahead and retrieve these files using the GUIDs for the files. And basically, we're not going to actually get the file back. We're going to get these strings back. And the strings, like I said, are going to be URLs, and we're just going to fill out that piece. So it's going to be get value or default, not get numerator, get value or default. And it's going to be passing in that nice GUID, which is going to be the designator for kind of uniquely identifying the file. And we're also going to, like I said, have some ability to add files. So we're going to, for starters, want to add the right order. It's going to be GUID as the first key, and then URL is the actual value that we're storing. And again, we don't really want to do that if it already exists. So we're going to put a little check here that actually the key doesn't already exist. In other words, the file hasn't already been uploaded, because otherwise it's going to cause, well, it's not going to cause problems necessarily, but we're going to have to think about how to handle collisions. And it's like one extra step of complication we don't need to take right now. So this is kind of the bare bones glue that kind of we do need. We can't get away with not having this. And the next part is kind of, I think we need to really think about how this is going to look like inside of our view. And so inside of our routable pages, we're not gonna bother with naming this creatively. We're just gonna head directly into this index.razor, which is the default page, and we're just gonna make sure that our service is available, because without that, we really can't actually access these URLs. So it's the file storage service, again, that we're going to be pulling in. And I'm going to go ahead and just name it file storage service, because we're only going to be using it. Other thing that I might want to do right now is also inject the other bits I'm going to need, which is that you can't really get away with not having a navigation manager, because we're going to have some idea of converting between different types of URLs to actually find URIs that correspond to things that live in this folder. And so I need a navigation manager to do that. So let's go ahead and add the standard navigation manager, because we do need that inside of our application. So navigation manager as well. And we also need some JavaScript interop later. And I'm only adding it now so that I don't forget to add it at the top of my view. But we'll eventually get to this topic. But the idea is that we're going to have some sort of client-side ability to download the files once they're uploaded, because it's kind of great to view the files maybe on the server, but it's not super awesome for the user experience to never get to see the files. And it looks like I also, this red squiggly just means that I need to also make sure that I have all the right import statements. So let's make sure that my imports are all settled, because this is, again, not the CSHTML maybe you're used to. This is actually using the Razor syntax with all the components and all that. So if I go to my imports, I'll see that this is kind of something that's a little bit bare bones. We do want to have the place where this service is defined. So this is DevEx Blazor. Let's start using DevExpress Blazor. That's why. And once that's the case, you'll see that my little errors have gone away. And actually, just on that, I should again be back to a running application. It's not doing anything different, but it does actually still run. So if I go to .NET Watch, it should actually again be a reachable website. And it's not happy with this, what's the problem? Okay, the reason is because there's one other bit I wanted to get to. I think that I started the topic on this, but I never actually talked about it. So if we go back to the place where we were introducing services to the middleware, there is a need for us to actually register the services the same way the weather forecast storage service was kind of handled as well. So it looks like I need to make sure here that we have gone ahead and let's take a look if this looks pretty standard. And what's the problem? File storage service cannot provide a value for the property in my index pages. This might be a little issue with type resolutions. So if I go ahead, file storage service, I'm pulling in, this should be pulling in my data types as I'm expecting them. And I'm going to just go ahead and pull in my imports just for the sake of not having to constantly drag myself back here over and over again. And this is kind of a good opportunity to also, while I'm at it, handle all the NuGet packages I know I'm going to be needing. So we've already kind of run through a lot of this. There's common steps in the last kind of cast we went over, but there are a handful of usings that we're going to need, and I don't want to really track back and go to this page over and over again to handle those usings. So those usings are going to be these, and they're kind of the same ones that you're probably used to if you have seen the other cast, which is that if we're actually going to be signing documents, we're going to need these types to be available. And we're going to also need to handle a few cases in that case. So we're going to want to have the packages available. So specifically, if I go back here and I check what packages I have, I should only have DevExpress Blazor. We do want to actually add a few more here, this list. So we want to add 2 more packages. So there's DevExpress document processor. And again, I want to get the latest bits pre-release. And again, if you're ever confused about what the names are of these particular packages, again, this is why I rely heavily on the package search, because I myself end up repeatedly going back to if I want to know what our document processor is, the package, the specific name, I often search here, and then I found out, oh, this is the full name, the full designation, this is the command that you're supposed to pass in. So that's kind of how that works. And the only difference is, in my case, I'm using the pre-release version. So I've gone ahead and added that. And I want to go ahead and also add the package for the non-system drawing libraries, where we can actually draw without having to rely on system drawing in our non-Windows environment, because that's a change that has been circa .NET 6. You have to do that. And so it's going to be DevExpress drawing with a small little twist. It's going to be drawing Skia, which is the cross-platform rendering engine. So this is not the rendering engine you use by default in Windows, but you can use it in Windows if you'd like. The advantage is that means that you can start generating reports exactly the same, pixel perfect everywhere, and they're going to look identical from the day forward once you start using the Skia engine. And I generally prefer doing little sanity checks and making sure that every package and everything is where it's supposed to be. Now the thing is that I want to go ahead and make sure that we are making use of the controls that we expect them to be using them. So let's go ahead and also, while we're at it, let's also save this. I think that I made some changes to this file and they were unsaved, and .NET Watch didn't catch them originally. That might be the problem that it was originally having when it was saying that the project can't recognize my file storage service. Now I think my file storage service, if I reload, well, it kind of already did for me. Yeah, now it works fine. So the problem was I just had an unsaved file, and since I'm running this in a terminal and it's not aware of what's happening in VS Code, it's kind of out of sync. But now it's back again in sync, and we actually are running application. The point is that I want to go ahead and add my modifications here onto this page. And the 2 things I want to go ahead and make sure I have is I want to make sure I have an upload control and some sort of button as well. So the button is going to be the download button, basically, that we need. So let me go ahead and go into my page, and probably don't need this stuff. It's kind of just polluting the page and making it unnecessary. We do want a DX upload control, and we do want something like a DX button, I believe. And what I want to go ahead and do is, maybe I should, for the sake of kind of hurrying this along, maybe showcase how this looks like by default and kind of how we're going to spice it up. So I think that it should already have picked up those changes, and now, yeah, like I said, the button doesn't have any content in it. Maybe I should add that content as well. So like click and download, let's say. So so now we have two buttons. This should always show up the dialog that we're kind of used to, and it should allow me to kind of point to files. But if I actually click on a file, it's going to immediately tell me, hey, you can't upload, because the upload control has no idea what it's supposed to do. So it's just going to say one file was not uploaded. But we do get this nice little display saying that, hey, you have one first row of this very first file. And if I add additional rows, I can go ahead and see more files that have failed to download. But the interesting thing is I can at least get some client-side indication that, hey, the client-side is aware of what's going on. I should probably, while we're at it, beef up our client-side as well, because like I said, there is going to be some JS interop, which is why I'm pulling in this. Specifically, the place where I'll want to go ahead and do that is in sort of the bare bones template that we have. I'll want to go ahead and from here pull in my particular layout that has the client side code that actually adds a link and clicks it and makes it available for download. So the idea is that the button itself is going to be handling this, and I want this available to me. So right before my script for Blazor server, I'm going to also have this file saved to PDF available to me. And this is what I'm going to be calling. And like I said, it's going to be basically taking some encoded data for the content of the PDF and making it available on the link and allow me to download it. And so whatever's on the server, I can download through this element, through this link. Again, make sure I want to save because I don't want to get out of sync again. Going back into that particular view, like I said, the heavy lifting here for the download function is going to be handled by the actual button that we're talking about. I probably want to go ahead and fill that in now. And for the sake of kind of having this go by a little bit quicker, let's just go ahead and fill in this text with, instead of having the placeholder, let's have the actual code that we're talking about. So essentially I have a field, has download, and that field basically controls the visibility of whether or not I have the download button at all. So by default it's going to be false, but I'll just set it to true, so I still have a button. And I'm actually going to be calling this download PDF with this mouse event args. So when you click, it's going to allow you to download the PDF. The thing is that we do need to actually play around with the file storage service to actually get data. So let's go ahead and add in the generic idea of kind of what the upload control is supposed to do so that we actually have something to fetch. So again, I'm going to fill out this template so that we kind of can very quickly get up to speed. The important thing is actually that we want to make sure that we fill in the attribute for allowed file extensions. And we also have the ability to actually look up our navigation manager and to have meaningful URIs. So I've just gone ahead and added that in because it's going to be a bit longer otherwise. And for starters, I guess I don't really have to use the more advanced version of the upload control. We can kind of start simple and work our way up. So let's go over this. So the idea is that I have some functions I'm going to be calling when I start the upload, and I'm going to only allow people to upload PDFs because it's a PDF upload, and the point is I want to sign the PDFs. And I'm going to need a little bit more code. Specifically, I need two fields that are going to handle this process. One is that I need to actually have, besides has download, I need to have some idea of the file names we're talking about. So I'm going to have something called file name, which is going to be the most recent file I've uploaded, which is the one I generally care about. You could set this up so you have multiple files, but I don't really think that that's extremely necessary at this point. I'm going to actually want to make sure that those handlers that the upload controls are expecting are there. And these are not really anything that you would be surprised about. Like I said, we're just now calling the navigation manager to convert the URIs. It's a URL that it's gonna point to this uploads folder or a file in the uploads folder, and it's gonna convert it to a URI that is understandable. And then this is like a little toggle that we have so that by default you're not going to get the download button because there's nothing that's going to be uploaded yet. And I'm also going to go ahead and want to interface with that download PDF functionality because the button itself is expecting something called download PDF that's going to call. And download PDF is just going to allow me to create an attachment, and that's going to be the base64 content that we're going to be saving. And that content, the create attachment result, is actually something, it's the result that we did on the client side last time, on the console line application side of things last time. So create attachment is going to be all those steps that we did in the document processor to actually generate the file. So basically it's just to reiterate kind of what we did last time, but it's kind of a reprisal. We have to use a PDF document processor, which is in our Office File API. And if you kind of were doing this from scratch, and I already added NuGet packages, but if you were doing from scratch and you kind of want to figure out, well, which NuGet package do I add for this reference? If you go to our documentation, so if you go to DevExpress Docs, and you search by name. So if you go to the members of PDF document processor and allow, I can actually head into this class, and it kind of not only gives me a description of kind of how to use it, but it also gives me the namespace. And if I wanted to go old school, I could do an assembly reference to DevExpress Docs, or what I could do is I could use this NuGet package, and that's what we already added. This is why I've added it. So we use this and other types that are in this NuGet package. And I should also mention this NuGet package is a meta package that includes a few others. So it includes this thing, DevExpress PDF Core, which is pretty important. It doesn't include the drawing Skia, which is why I added it separately. But just so you know, if you bring in this package, you bring in quite a lot. The one thing you don't bring in is the ability to use the new Skia engine. So again, what we're doing here is instead of, the only difference from what we did last time and this time is that instead of this just being the file name, this actually has the prefix that, hey, this exists, the file has been uploaded to this folder, and it's going to be at our web root uploads folder, and this is the file, and this is where you load it. And we're doing the same rigmarole that we did last time, which is I want to delete all the pages except for the last one, and I want to take my PFX file and use my lame password and actually sign it with the signature that I have. So it's going to have a visual signature, and I'm also using these types that are part of, I think, DevExpress.pdf core. So if I go here, it's DevExpress drawing, it looks like. But basically these types are all included by having the document processor, and I've already gone through the trouble of having the imports updated. So if I go to my imports, I have this DevExpress drawing here. So there's no real sleight of hand here. It's just that we have to kind of hustle a little bit to get through all of this. So the idea is that I'm also doing one other thing I didn't do last time, which is this bit, which is I'm going to be creating a graphic that's going to have some string, and it's going to say it's processed on this date time. And what I like about this, and the reason why I'm doing it, is because I'm not using system drawing to do this. I'm doing this in the cross-platform engine that depends on Skia. So it's not relying on any system.drawing types, meaning that you could do this in non-Windows environments and it works. I have gone another step further. I think that if I'm not mistaken, that I do, yeah, here, I mentioned it. If I can avoid that dialog, I also rotate a little bit. So I rotate this 22.5, I think, degrees, so that basically it's a little bit extra touch that we're going to get that. And the other thing that I did that was a little interesting was that I also used a text brush with an alpha value so that I have some transparency. but besides that, there's nothing super interesting, and I decided to go with teal as my color for the stamp. That's again not super interesting, but I thought it's a little nice of a touch. And then
I love a teal.
yeah, teal is it seems to be everything is a shade of blue in the computer world. I'm not sure why that is, but unfortunately, all our icons are blue or orange, and we have to live with it. But anyway, the signature has some metadata, and this is kind of the non-visual part of kind of the part that talks to the certificate and has the PFX and all that stuff. And then without these PDF save options, when I'm saving the document, it's not going to actually persist these changes, and so that's why I'm passing in the signature. And this is giving me the content that I'm going to be downloading. And we step through this more slowly, with the exception of we don't have this in the last cast, but this is not super interesting. This is just, like I said, just the important thing is I'm not using system drawing, and if I did, I would just have a lot of weird exceptions about the mono runtime and about different things that are deprecated and no longer supported. So, so I think that I've gone over quite a bit of kind of what the page on the client side is supposed to be doing. I probably also at this point want to make sure that we have a controller. So the little solution bar that we have here in VS Code is a little annoying in that it's really hard to create a top level folder. So I'm just gonna create one on my command line. So it's gonna be called controllers, and that's where I'm gonna put my controller. So here we go, and we're gonna go ahead and make sure we have a file that's gonna, or a controller that's gonna handle uploading and upload functionality. And again, we're kind of low on time, but I'm hoping that we can step through this as well. So the idea is this is not extremely fancy. We do have to make sure that we are namespacing this so that we are using, I believe, controllers. I think we're using it elsewhere as well. So I think we're already aware of this particular namespace. For not, the other thing is that we have to make sure, since we're going to be making an upload controller, this is going to be like I said, more classic ASP.NET Core MVC. So it's going to be model view controller. So we're going to have this idea of what is controller, and it's going to be, of course, in the Microsoft ASP.NET Core MVC namespace. And I'm going to go ahead and just pull in the route information, the attributes, and all that stuff right now, because kind of it's laboring the point too much otherwise. But if I go ahead and save this, and let me give this the ability so that we can use the service that I've added, and I want to also go ahead and make sure that this is pointed to the right namespace as well. So I've gone ahead, and now this control for the upload is kind of filled out a little bit more, and again, it's pointing to the place that we expect to have the uploads put up in our web root. I have one other convenience that I'm running here that you don't have to, but kind of once you upload more than one file and the .tmp files start filling up, you do want to kind of remove those .tmp files after 5 minutes, because the chunk size is 2 megabytes, and we are potentially going to be uploading, like I said, PDFs that are hundreds of pages. So we do want to make sure that those temp files, once we no longer need them, get removed, and we don't have junk filling up our uploads folder. That's kind of why we have this remove. Other thing is that I'm using Newtonsoft JSON, and so it's kind of standard at this point, but I'm going to be interfacing with that, and there's some basic exception handling as well. And then finally, the heavy lifting is that we're going to have to be communicating with the file storage service that we've injected into the web page, into the client front end, and also into this controller as well. So the controller is aware of the dependency injection of kind of the environment that we're talking about and the service that it needs available. And we also need a helper, a class that's just basically going to be keeping track of kind of the different chunk sizes because we are going to have chunking enabled in our upload control. Now, actually, I think that for the most part, everything should be, the bare bones essentials, if I'm not mistaken, should be filled out. And if I were to go back into, yes, I do want to restart my app. So if I go ahead and look into kind of what the looks like it's complaining about something. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at what the last problem was. The upload control, dereference possibility, file name. But I think that I need to clean rebuild. So let's go ahead and not run it from this console because it's kind of finicky. I prefer to just, at this point, since we're not really doing anything special, let's just go ahead and run it from VS Code and hit F5 to run. So we're going to go ahead and run it directly from VS Code. It's a little bit, saves one step, and it does actually run. It looks like it had a little syncing issue. I saved the files so many times, and there are, it looks like I do need to actually still pull in my upload control here under helpful resources. I'm expecting to find it. So let's go ahead and take a look and see why I don't have my upload control with me. So let's take a quick second to again spin this up, and hopefully at this point we'll get either some sort of error or we'll get some sort of indication of what's going on. It looks like the index razor does not have the upload control, and it might be because this is not well formed, because I kind of have built this out in pieces and explaining along the way. So let me just take the version that I'm kind of accustomed to, which is the more advanced version of the upload control. It has the ability for us to drag and drop. So it has an area where basically we're referencing it by this CSS class name, and it's basically the area where you can drag and drop the it's down here. You can drag and drop into this drop zone, and you can actually upload your files not just by selecting them in a dialog, but also by dragging and dropping them, which is kind of like in the year 2023, this is kind of like a thing that you kind of expect to see and find. So now, yeah, this is kind of what I was expecting. So now we have the upload control, and I didn't bother to center anything because that's the hardest thing in CSS, centering things.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, those of us who are illiterate in CSS and don't want to pick it up, and kind of there's always new frameworks and Tailwind and different flow parameters and things like that. You don't really want to bother with it if you can avoid it. So I mean, there's already too many things to keep track of. So that's kind of the sense I have. Yeah, the last thing, exactly. So basically, now I have actually a file that we can test this out with. So I could actually drag and drop this, and wow, it actually uploaded fine. So it was a success.
Surprise.
Yeah. And it looks like it's not happy with this. So the problem is that turns out I need certificates. This is why I kind of have this environment where lo and behold, I have something called docs. It's one folder up, and docs has this pfx file and this sig file, which I do need. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself a docs folder in my actual project, and I'm going to go ahead and actually copy the core resources, the pfx file and that sig into docs. So let's do that as well, and let's make sure that it's there, and it is, and let's also make sure that VS Code knows that it's there. Okay, VS Code knows that it's there. Okay, now it should actually sign things. And by the way, since we're already on this topic, we're kind of talking about the server and kind of what it's doing. I said that it's using this uploads folder, and that's exactly what it did. It actually uploaded this file correctly. So our upload control does work. It's the download and the signing that we're kind of testing at this point. So now that I think is resolved just by doing that. And now if I take the same file again, I don't know where that's taking me to my downloads. Let me just go to my uh, my folder where I kind of can just drag and drop. Again, I'm uploading, and I get this extra button. It's conditionally showing now. I go ahead and sign the document, and I'm gonna use my strange file name convention. I'm not sure why I decided on it, but here we go. And now I should actually get the signature in this location. I hard coded this for now because I had one letter where it was useful to have it here, but I did want my stamp like a little bit rotated and put here. And my document is actually multiple pages, which is why this is actually, if you notice it, page 2. So I'm looking at the last page, and I could actually go ahead and I believe if we want, we can go ahead and upload a really big document. And hopefully it's going to actually pick up the fact that I didn't really handle multiple files, but let's see if I can actually sign this particular file. It's a different file. Hopefully I'm getting a different file. And yeah, this is the very last page on this other long 500 pager. So actually we were able to sign correctly, upload correctly, and we did all the PDF document processor actions. I know we kind of blazed through the last half of this kind of quickly. I'll probably upload all the code for this so that you can kind of peer into it yourself. The important thing was that we have to use a controller, and there's no other way to communicate with the upload control. And we were also relying on some JS interrupt, and so you do need some JS interrupt to get the download functionality to work. And the download function, like I said, was this little helper function I added to. It was actually a trick I didn't even know, because I don't know very much front end stuff, but I didn't know that this little trick to get downloads to work was in our current day and age like this. So I thought it was cool that you add this link to the DOM and then you remove it later and you run the link.click. So I was pretty happy with that. But yeah, obviously you want to kind of build this out more and have probably a few more helpers in terms of functionalities for things like displaying the PDF as it gets uploaded and showing the pages and all that. And you could parse through all those pages using the same document processor. So if you'd like, you could get a preview of the page. That's exactly what our demo does. So if I go back into our demos, if you recall the Office File API, go back here and go into our ASP.NET Core demos, and I go into PDF interactions. This is actually an image. It's not anything else. So essentially, on the server, we generate an image preview of one of the PDF pages. There's only one page, so that made it kind of convenient. But the point is that if you want to, you can make more advanced configuration options and changes to your PDFs in the server environment. We kind of made some basic changes, which is that we stamped something, we signed something, and we deleted some pages. That's kind of like those are basic actions. We could generate pages from scratch if we wanted to. So maybe you have an audit report you add as the last page, and so that report maybe explains kind of the actions that were taken on the report. So those are kind of the bare bones essentials of using upload control, Office File API, in Blazor. And the other thing that I should probably mention again was that we didn't have to deal with any of the finickiness of getting the style sheets to work and Bootstrap 5 compatibility, because we started with one of our great Blazor templates. That's kind of why already by default it came with the grid packaged in, and it's using the default weather forecast that Microsoft provided us. But basically that's kind of the rundown of from start to finish how you would go about building this. So I think kind of now that we've kind of established how it looks like from scratch, it's kind of, we kind of hit the ground running next time, and we don't have to necessarily labor the points of kind of the steps that were taken. And again, I think kind of the two resources that you can rely on heavily if you're kind of ever in doubt about what's going on is you can use our package search functionality at NuGet.devexpress.com. This is the package search you get in the package manager in Visual Studio as well, if you're in a Windows environment using Visual Studio full, but you have access to it too outside of Visual Studio. The other thing is the documentation is pretty darn useful, um, because besides having examples of different tasks, you have kind of the type names you could look up very quickly. So you could go down here and go to Office File API, and you could kind of really quickly go to a PDF document processor uh, and find all the information you need. Uh, so that's actually, this is the very first topic that comes up. I did not plan it, but this is exactly what you would want to fill. And you notice in our example, we do actually fill this as well. And if you want to and get a full working example, you can just get this repository and clone it. And by default, the version that we wrote by hand is the C# version. The VB version is automated. So I recommend that, by now hopefully everyone is using the C# version. But these are the same basic actions we took today. So there's nothing. No big surprises. The only thing that I think is kind of interesting is that the coordinates are kind of something you should keep in mind. You have to be sure that you know kind of the left-hand corner of the PDF-oriented rectangle. It's just a few things, but these are not really game changers. These are not really anything that should be out of the blue. And I would think the very next step of kind of what you would want to build here is you'd want to have some sort of preview of how the signature is going to look like, and then give them the option of downloading it at that point. So things to think about. Maybe I'll return to this example and we'll talk about it some more. But actually, that's everything I wanted to cover, Amanda. So I think we did a good job in kind of cramming quite a lot into a small bit of time.
Yes, you crammed quite a lot into a small bit of time. Excellent work.
And I'm not sure if there are any points we have to address at this point, but I've cleared my stack.
You cleared your stack.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next week we're going to take off because here in the U.S. it is going to be Thanksgiving. I did want to say that .NET Conf is still going on, so when you leave here, you can pop over there. It goes till 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time today. There's lots of great sessions still running. I'll pop that link in the chat. And that's it for this one. Thanks, Areg.
Well.